Welcome to The In-Between, where shift happens. This podcast is for anybody who has ever found themselves in that space in between what was and what's going to be. That space where life happens. The moment between where we are and where we're going. That space that is often uncomfortable to sit in. The stuff of life, the ups, the downs, the moments of connection and insight, and the moments where we can't see two steps in front of us. We will ask all the questions, maybe find some answers, and generally work at being okay in the mystery of the in-between.
So in today's episode, we are diving into the myth of purpose. Ooh, signal ominous music.
Ooh, purpose.
Yeah, and so just kind of jumping into like purpose, the ideas of purpose, the things that we have been like, the messages we've received about purpose and our life's purpose and all the things like in between, right? So for those of you who have never tuned in or from tuning in for, multiple times, the premise of this podcast is that one person has all the questions. Maybe not all the answers, but
all the answers.
And the other person has no idea like what the questions are. And it's kind of practicing being in that in between, that kind of spontaneous place that we find ourselves like most of the time in life. So we're going to jump right into the myth of purpose. And so I think historically, I don't know about you, but we have been kind of fed from an early age, like finding your purpose or the purpose of life or the meaning of like all the things, right? And so then it becomes this desperate search for our purpose, and it takes us all over the place, And so the first question is kind of like, what messages do we often receive about purpose? Now, this could be from your own personal experience or just an observation of the world around us. So what messages do we often receive about purpose?
Well, I want to say so many, and yet I have no idea where the messages I got on the idea of purpose came from.
Right.
I know for most of my life, until maybe the last like 5 to 7 years, up until then, I was driven by the idea of like, you have to have a purpose. Yeah. You in fact, you came with a purpose.
Like a defined, like set in stone, like this is your purpose and your purpose only.
Like it was decided before you got here somehow through like some ethereal magic what your purpose was. The reason you as an individual were here.
Sounds a little like Calvinism.
Yeah, right? So I don't know where that... I can look back at it, and at times it felt very religious, very like Christian in a sense, like predetermination. And then at other times it was almost the exact opposite of like, it wasn't religious at all. This was, you are so important as an individual that obviously you came here with a purpose that the world needs, or I don't know, some like, now it just kind of feels like strange to even say it out loud. But I think there are like, I was going to say secret messaging, but
subliminal messages.
Yeah, I think there are unconscious messages all throughout society, in Western culture, or at least in the United States, that you are supposed to have a purpose. It should be, emphasis on should. It should be the thing that drives you. It's what motivates you. It's what keeps you going. I think it's also the thing that like should inspire us each to work far beyond what is reasonable in terms of hours a week, or beyond, to the state of exhaustion, right? Like I think it's the thing that like we get really twisted, that keeps us going, that keeps us ignoring our own intuition and like signals from our body to slow down or rest or reach out for help, or I mean all kinds of things really.
It's interesting bleeding over from like, it's like this purpose and productivity have now become this kind of enmeshed sort of idea.
Yes. Yeah. Right. Right. And probably also into like the whole American dream thing. I think there's probably a very large crossover there of like you should and shall achieve the American dream. Just work hard enough. That's all. And well, what makes you work hard enough is your internal recognition of your purpose or whatever. And like you don't have value. Maybe this is it. You don't have value unless you are working a certain amount, unless you're producing certain volume, unless you're at the grind, right? Like that's the message. Obviously,
Yeah.
I don't think that's true anymore. No longer do I think that's true. I don't think it was ever true, but I don't want to say like it's not true anymore like it used to be. But like
Right.
I don't think that was ever actually true, and I don't believe that any longer either. Mostly, there are parts of me that's like, no, you need to keep working, dude. What are you doing? But
Well,
yeah,
yeah.
I think there's this big crossover between like all of those like old school American values. Ugh.
Well, it's interesting, like when you talked about like if I look back, like the context in which I first kind of understood this idea of purpose. I don't know. Well, I think I was thinking like it wasn't actually said to me in those words, but I think it actually was, and it definitely was in this kind of religious context that we come to the planet with a purpose that only like a me can serve, right? And so, but then what it feels kind of perplexing because then I'm like, well, there was no instruction manual on like what that
Yeah.
is, and so
Yeah.
then it becomes this kind of lifelong pursuit of finding that purpose. And then there's some messaging about, well, you may never know exactly what that purpose is. Well, that's helpful,
Yeah.
but it's interesting if we take out this idea of productivity from purpose, right? If we just like what is the purpose of our existence? And the simple answer, our purpose is exactly what we're doing, breathing in and out, right? We have arrived in this, we have check, we've fulfilled our purpose. But I think my understanding of it has evolved a little bit because like my purpose, I don't know, big P purpose, is I'm doing it right. We're living, we're existing, we're moving about the world. But those little P purposes, those things that really drive us every day, I think has evolved in this understanding of like understanding my authentic self and then how to express that in the world. I mean, that's become like the little P purpose because the big P purpose is already
Right.
done. Right. So it's like, and I think the messages we receive about that are varied and multiplicitous and varied about how we could show up authentically in the world and what that looks like. But I think for me, that has become the driving force, which comes from my values, which is authenticity and creating spaces for belonging and showing up in being being vulnerable and showing up, curious about the world around me. So that every day is like this new adventure in the little P purpose because every day is a new expression of me. I don't know if that makes sense. Which I don't know that's necessarily the message that I was given.
Right.
Because I think the message I was given is like there's this big, the purpose-driven life, right? That was the kind of the book that was in vogue at the time. And it's like this desperate like search, but now it's more of a uncovering. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I don't have to search for it anymore. I'm just uncovering what already is.
Right. Yeah. I think the overarching principle in the idea of purpose that I got, I think was like purpose means there is something that you should be doing. Purpose like a big should, like you said, like there's no instructions, so you don't necessarily know what it is, but you should be doing it. Like, wait, what? Yeah, I definitely think it's lost that should. And it's kind of like for me, like the feeling of what you're saying is opened up to like this realm of like possibility and curiosity and like, ooh, I wonder what's how this is going to turn out. I wonder how this is going to be, or what's going to come next, or whatever.
Choose your own adventure. It's like a choose your own adventure.
Yeah, right. It is like, I don't know, this one or that one. I don't know. We'll see. And I will say I do still struggle at times with the idea like purpose that is not. I think the language for me hasn't come around yet to talking about purpose in a way where it doesn't sometimes sound like it is like something else is determining what the purpose is.
Yeah.
And I think that's just, it's a language thing. Like, how many years did I spend around language where purpose was predetermined based and somebody else decided or something else decided and it should be a certain way. It's an interesting thing.
Well, and I think, the thing that I found too, like in my earlier purpose days, is like, it was almost like there's a purpose and whatever you're doing wasn't it, right? It was like whatever you're doing in the moment was not it. So there was this constant search. Never did it feel like, oh, I have landed in my purpose and I'm just living it. It was always this like, and the next thing and the next thing and more and more and more. And I think maybe that is kind of the cultural influence of bigger, better, stronger sort of idea. Yeah. Right. And so that this, maybe this kind of like culture of discontent, right? That your purpose has to be, or this too, that it has to be this big, great, grand, sort of like in your face, on the cover of Time magazine sort of purpose, that it couldn't be going out and enjoying working in a vegetable garden or planting some seeds here, or cultivating a really deep, nourishing friendship with an individual, right? Like it had to be like this sort of billboard, all in lights sort of expression in the world, which I think then drives this idea of this, that it has to be that the experiences, the everyday experiences of our lives can't be wondrous and awe-inspiring. Yeah. So it does like, oh, we have to get that next fix because the fix has to be this big thing, which I think also is a culture understanding. Like, so I think it's, for me, it has been an awareness of purpose in the littlest, even though I don't think that what would be deemed as littlest, even I think none of it is, right? Is that there is purpose, there's value, there's meaning, there's depth in those seemingly small things of life.
Yeah. You know what just came up for me? Oh, it's that whole like, and this I think too is one of the ways purpose was talked about. I didn't really just think about it till right now. I grew up in the generation of what do you want to be when you grow up? You can be anything.
Oh,
which like, I understand where it stemmed from, out of this, like, we want to support our kids and you can pursue your dreams or whatever.
Empowerment, right? Yeah.
Power, yeah. But it really became like paralyzing, I think, in a lot of ways. Because, I don't know, I was 5. or 10 or whatever. Like, I had no idea. It was you, for whatever reason, you were going to be like a fireman, a doctor, or a marine biologist. Like, those were the only options. Because we had no idea. And why marine biologist was always thrown into the mix, I have no idea, but it was. I swear, every time. But I think what happened was, it was like, you're supposed to know why you're exist. Like it came along with a lot of baggage and presumptions. And I think one of them was like, you're supposed to be something important. You can be anything. So you should choose something important and big and make something of yourself and change the world. Be the person who cures cancer, or I don't know, like something massive, like you're saying, with like a billboard. I think a lot of that stemmed from the what do you want to be when you grow up? Which, I guess the flip side of like children should be seen and not heard, right? I mean, I think it was a very flip-flop, like one extreme to the other.
Like a response to that idea.
Yeah, well intentioned, but poorly executed. And I think that carries a lot of, I don't know, anxiety ridden beliefs and thoughts for a long time for a lot of people.
It's interesting too, because I think, yeah, this like, well, you said like to be something important, and like, who is deciding that? Who is
Right.
deciding what is important and what
Right.
isn't?
Yeah.
For me, like, if you ask me, I remember like at 3 years old, what did you want to be? Like, what do you want to be when you grow up? Missionary, doctor. That was it. That was it. Because I couldn't choose between one or the other, so we just smashed the two together, right? And so
Both.
that
Yeah.
was the whole thing.
Yeah.
Um, how's that working for me now, where I am neither of those things,
Either.
right?
Yeah.
And so, but what's interesting about that is that it was this absorption of the values of the environment around me, which is not that's not a bad thing, but I think that is greatly influenced. It greatly influences some of these things, and so I think that the more that it goes back to like kind of understanding ourselves, right? The more that we can begin to um, create our own value system, based on the things that are important to us. And maybe some of that is supported from our environment, our upbringing, or some of it maybe not. And so, like, really beginning to decide that and then operating from that space, right? Instead of this kind of, I don't know, default sort of, I don't know, stream of consciousness that I think that we sometimes find ourselves in. Do you think that, we talked about like this, searching for a purpose, and kind of like all the messaging and some of the, the maybe misguided things around that. But do you think that what has been the positive outcome, or what has been a supportive outcome of that? Because I think for all its misguided things, I think it has provided something of value. And so
Yeah.
what do you think? Like maybe in your own life, or what you've seen in the lives
Yeah.
of other
Yeah.
people.
I mean, I think it has been a great motivator to pursue a lot of things. Because I think I thought I had to, man, I don't know what my purpose is, so I better choose one.
Mm,
And so I pursued like some avenues for really extended periods of time, right? I mean, I think from like middle school on through like my early 30s, like music was the thing that I kept coming back to.
mm,
I mean, music is what got me through middle school and high school. So much so that I was like, well, this is obviously it. So I'm gonna just
yeah.
go on to college for music and go into a career for music. And I don't think I'd ever maintained discipline in any one area for as long as I did with that, as long as I have with music. And I mean, I still consider myself a musician, and I still go out and do gigs and stuff, and I keep up my skills and whatever. But I think the analytical, like objective practices of being what I would consider quote good musician.
Mhm.
I've been able to apply those practices and those skills to other areas, and like anyone who like really made it through music school could probably be the best in their field no matter what they do after that. I mean, seriously, because like the dedication to like hours in a practice room on a daily basis. I think most of us have probably learned since then we don't need, like, you can practice much better instead of practicing much longer.
Yeah.
Right?
Longer is always better, right?
Yeah, yeah. But I mean, there were times where I would do 9 or 12-hour days on a weekend in the practice room, which was, look back on, I think is crazy, but at the time, like how accomplished I was for whatever, right? But even the art of practicing how to practice, like taking that and like applying it to getting other tasks done, like knowing yourself well enough how to get things done,
Mhm.
I think can be really powerful. Um, and then applying now, much more recently, learning how to apply like the non-grind mindset to that has
Mm,
been
yeah.
more empowering of, right, like being able to get stuff done well, quickly, without like getting stuck in the grind is like, oh man, like it's been life changing. I mean, even in the last like 6 months, I'm like, holy shit, that is a powerful thing. So I think like pursuing a purpose in that way has been really empowering in terms of developing a skill set and a mindset to be able to approach different things in a kind of methodical way. I think also the idea of like purpose providing a meaning for things can be really important. Like, I don't know. I think without music in middle school, I think life would have been a whole different story.
Yeah.
Probably not in a great way. But like it was something to look forward to, right? There was something positive I could kind of always go lean on. So I think there probably is a great deal of meaning in purpose for a lot of people at different times, you know?
And I think for me, it kind of, not that I knew it at the time, but I think now looking back on it more, and the more I'm kind of in some of these conversations, that it really kind of honed that skill of curiosity, right? If you're always kind of observing and like exploring and trying things and like, is this my purpose? Is this my purpose? Like, what are the things that really stir passion in me? Like asking those questions, because I think we often find like, I think people often define their purpose in like the traditional sense based on the things that they're good at or the things they're passionate about or the things that come naturally, right? So this comes naturally to be this must be my purpose. And I think that there's value in that, because I think there's value in the questioning, in the looking, in the observing, in the reflecting of, what is it that comes natural for me? What is it that stirs that passion, or the things that I can do and then like time stands still, right? Or like you can be doing this thing and like, 5 hours have passed, right? And so those sorts of things, and like being really observant and exploring those things, I think is kind of the supportive outpicturing of this conversation on purpose. I think that often we get kind of sidetracked with this idea of like this big P purpose, right?
Yeah.
But once we kind of get that out of the way, that we're living, we're breathing, we're moving, we're navigating life, if that's all we ever do, boom, we've done it, right? And so then all these other little things become like the cherry on top, like the thing, the overflow of that. And so I think what happens is, in traditional conversations about purpose, that big P is, if you're not doing something productive, then you're not valuable, or it's like this kind of like trying to justify or determine our worth. But we're always coming from that space. But if we've already like kind of set that aside, that we are all worthy, we all have intrinsic worth. Oh, okay. Now that's done. Now I can begin to live from already enough. Right? Instead of purpose being like the determination of, are we enough? And so I think that beginning to like kind of tease out that conversation, I think actually makes this conversation of purpose like a much more like textured and deep.
It reminds me of a story I heard in, well, I don't know, story or a lesson maybe I heard in college. We were in a master class, and I don't even remember who it was, but the person giving the master class was working with somebody. They were playing whatever, and they stopped them, interrupted them. It was basically like, not every drum solo needs to save the world.
Yep.
And like, I just remember like the whole room like lost their breath for a moment, because here we are, like a bunch of like 19, 20-year-olds who are just like so like blinders on, nose to the grindstone. This is our life. This is what we're like. Every note we play is the most important thing that's ever happened. And yeah, of course, every drum solo would save the world. Like, if not save the world worthy, then it should be played, right? Like that was the mindset.
Yeah, like what's the point, right? If it doesn't,
Why even do it? Yeah, yeah. And I don't know, like just hearing that just changed something. Like it felt like at a cellular level, like oh, right, not everything I play has to save the world. It can just be music. It can just be fun. It can be notes, right? Yeah, and I think that's probably really true of purpose too, right? Like if I'm not trying to save the world with this big P, huge overarching purpose, with if everything I do has to be part of this like master plan to be somebody whose name is on the billboard, neon lights changing the world, then all of a sudden it opens up this space for like, oh, like purpose in this moment. It's almost like setting an intention, like what is my intention in the next 5 minutes, or in this tap, or in this hike. I'm gonna go out and hike. I'm gonna go whatever, and maybe the purpose is just like, just be there.
Yeah, just breathe.
Yeah. Then all of a sudden, because I think purpose in a different perspective can be really powerful.
Yeah.
But it's not like overwhelming and all consuming. Then it's like, oh, it can be anything, and it can change from moment to moment, and I can choose what it is, or just let it be whatever it is. You know what I mean? Like it's this spectrum of experience that I think otherwise isn't really available. You know?
Well, just think about how many risks we could take, how much more creative we could be, how much more engaged in like all aspects of our life can be from that space. Because I think if you have like this big purpose that has to like change the world, every little thing we have to do has to be like this momentous like thing.
Yeah.
Then we're gonna do less things, and we're gonna let
and God forbid you get it
wrong. We're gonna let perfection be the enemy of the good. So then we just become paralyzed, because if it can't be perfect, it can't be profound, it can't be like life altering, whatever sort of experience, and I'm just not going to do it. So I think it does keep us, I can speak for myself, keep myself stuck. But when that's not the thing, then, hey, I can try this, or I can step out in this way. It doesn't work out. Okay, it doesn't work out. Let's step in another way, right? And so we become more attached. I think we take ourselves less seriously too. Like it doesn't have to be
right.
Good stuff.
It is good stuff.
So if purpose isn't the goal, then what is the goal? Is there a goal?
Is there? Well, that's is there a goal? I think we already met the goal, right? Because I mean, I guess the one thing I feel like maybe we haven't talked about yet is like, what is the meaning of life? What is the purpose of life? Like, and I think you kind of touched on it, but just obviously, like, I think our purpose, y'all do whatever you want with this belief. My belief is we are all interconnected, and we all are part of like I don't know, life itself exists. And imagine life existing without any form, without any like physical realm of being. It could never know itself, because there wouldn't ever be anything to like reflect back to itself. It is. And so somehow, form, life, this realm of existence was created. And I think that is the purpose, to have been created, to be here. Like, and I don't mean this in like a very like Christian God, like God created the earth and whatever, but I think, like form came into being so that it wasn't just one thing. Now it is, I mean, it's all from whatever that was, right? Whether it's the Big Bang or something else, like everything was one thing, and now it is that one thing in pieces. And I think we're here to just be the thing that mirrors back to each other in order to know what life is, like what's possible, like what does it mean to be this thing, what does it mean to be alive, And so I think like the grander purpose of it all is to just be here, right? And so like, what is the answer, or what is the question? No,
forgot the question.
like the purpose of being here, I think, is just to be here, and we get to make it whatever we want.
Yeah.
You know, right? Like we get to pursue life however we want. And like, you know, we somewhere along the line collectively chose like mortgages and credit scores and stuff, but like it could be what it could be whatever, you know.
Whatever. Yeah.
Really, like we kind of made up the rules here, and in a way collectively I think we could make them whatever we want. And that plays out on a whole bunch of different levels, right? Like that plays out across the globe, that plays out universally. I think that plays out locally. I think that plays out individually. Like I can choose meaning in any moment. Like I can choose for this moment to be meaningful or not. I can choose for it to mean something really important. I can look for meaning or not. You know, like I think it really is just up to us to find whatever depth of meaning we want in life at any given time. So that there really isn't, I don't know that there is like a goal or
Yeah.
or a real like purpose, like definable purpose, because I think it's open-ended. It's whatever.
Well, I think that just gives a whole new like understanding of community and our interconnectedness too, right?
Yeah.
So that we begin, if that's the thing, if we all are intrinsically valuable, then we can begin to create some systems and frameworks that actually support that, support
Right.
people in their exploration of what their thing is.
Yeah.
Or it doesn't have to be one thing, right? What, like this whole navigating life thing,
Right.
that we can begin to support one another in our own curious exploration of what our relationship to this life is going to be. Because I think that is kind of like some of the conversation of purpose. Like, what is my relationship to this thing called life? And it can change from moment to moment, from experience to experience. And I get to extract meaning from that. I get to place meaning on certain experiences of our lives, and so, or my life, and so that I get to really explore my own relationship to it. And I think once we begin to support everyone in that, wow, imagine like that framework, like that we all, you know, get to explore what our relationship is to this thing called life.
Yeah.
So,
you know, I think too, like, especially within like new thought teachings, like where we are accustomed to, I think there is a common belief that our purpose here is to like somehow transcend the human experience or whatever, or we're supposed to evolve spiritually to a point where we're not affected by what would otherwise be called like worldly human effect, or what, like we're not affected by those things. We somehow control our experience, and like bad things don't ever happen.
Kind of purpose, right?
Yeah, I can understand how that has come to be if and when we're living through this paradigm of like the grind and rugged individualism and like this self-importance. If we're all supposed to be that important, I could see you wanting to find a like this extreme purpose that brings you to a place where you have transcended all this stuff. But I think like the next evolution of that is this idea kind of we have been talking about of like moving beyond the grind, moving beyond rugged individualism and this self-importance thing, and also moving beyond oneness as in the things I like and not the things I don't like, but oneness as in wholeness, all of the things, all of the pieces. And I think there is like a depth of experience that happens when we do that, because then we get to see, we don't have to ignore or pretend to ignore the stuff we don't like or the stuff that's not enjoyable. And I think there is a freedom that comes along with that of like, wow, that's a really shitty experience right now. And then also know that it's only right now, it's only this experience.
Right.
But then that also gives a greater depth to the things we enjoy. Because then we can really be in that moment of enjoyment because we've kind of freed ourselves to be there, to have that, to see that, to allow that part of us to really, I don't know, like reverberate in that moment, you know.
Such rich discussion on purpose. The title was The Myth of Purpose, but I think it's like the myth of what purpose is. And so I think this conversation has really kind of taken it down to the roots of that and how that can outpicture. So one sentence takeaway. I know this is going to be challenging, but one sentence takeaway. Got to make it hard for you.
Yeah, one sentence.
Wow. One sentence.
Just like a Thomas Troward sentence with like
no, it can't be. It can't be your like semicolon sentences that go on for like a paragraph.
Wow, one sentence takeaway from today is I don't want to tell people what to do, but
there's your sentence. You already used it.
Yeah, don't. That's it. I don't want to tell people what to do. Don't let your big P purpose get so large that it's overwhelming and keeps you from doing or being anything.
I love that.
Maybe it's for me more than it is for anyone else.
You heard it here, folks.
That helps you. Yeah.
Apply to your own life if it serves you.
Yeah.
Well, this has been a great conversation, and so I appreciate the new insights for me too about how this kind of shows up and kind of continue to like shed our own sort of beliefs around certain things, which I think is the thing, and that's kind of the in between. That's where life kind of gets beautiful and textured and edgy and all that good stuff. So thanks for joining in the conversation, and I hope that you have found some purpose in this conversation as you've been listening. We know that we have. And so until next time, we will catch you in the in-between.
Nobody really enjoys being in the in-between, but thanks for being here anyway. We may not have found all of the answers, but certainly some. And maybe more importantly, a little shift has happened. Because that is really what it's all about. Learning to be curious, authentic, and yes, maybe even a tad bit vulnerable. And the beauty of it all is that we are not alone in the in-between. So until next time, we hope a lot of shift happens.